Hello, my name is Adolfo Mendonça, and today we will be talking about interviewing and researching. Well, this is an important subject because interviewing is closely related to researching. When researchers want to look for some information, they want to find something, they may pursue surveys, they may have experiences that lead to findings, but they may also have interviews, especially qualitative researchers frequently pursue interviews in order to find out information. So interviewing, like the way we think about interviewing in journalism, is very much related to the way how we think about interviewing in research. Actually, learning about interviewing, even if it is under the view of journalistic interview, is a way to learn about how to research. So the first thing to do when you are interviewing or when you want to interview someone is you need to have a topic and you need to choose a source that will talk about this topic. You need to know about what is the difference between opinion and reporting. You need to know how to create your questions. You may want to create a script for your interview. And after you have got all the information from the interview, you will still have to shape your findings in order to bring your findings to people or to a certain audience. You may have ways to make your findings look more dynamic. So today we will talk about all of this, and I will mention some examples as we move on. So the first thing to do, you need a topic to talk about. You were mentioning, what is the topic? What do you want to find out? What is the information you want to research? Yes, you want to interview this guy, but why? What is the information that you were looking for? So before thinking about who you were going to interview, think about what you want to discover. If you are team working, will everyone interview the same people? Will you have different people to interview? Will each of the people in your group be interviewing different people? Or will just some of the people in your group be interviewing while the other ones will have different roles? Yes, in a certain project, like a podcast, for example, maybe you want some people to interview, maybe you want some people to pursue research with different kinds of sources, as we will talk about later, and maybe you will have someone to shape all of the findings. In case you have more than one person in your team interviewing, and you have different people being interviewed, will all of the guys who will be looking for information, will all of them be looking for the same information? For example, if you have a group of 5 people and 3 of your people will be interviewing 3 different people, one each one, will the three interviews be about the same topic? And inside of this topic, will you be looking for the same information? I don't know. If the topic is music education, for example, maybe you want to have one interview about K-12 music education. Maybe you want to have an additional interview about jazz music education. And maybe you want to have an additional interview about marching band. This is just an example. Well, finding sources. Yes. The interviews are a way of finding information. So the interviewee is one of the sources available you have to find out your information. But there are other sources as well. There are books, there are documents, there are newspaper articles, scientific articles, the internet, your own experiences. And of course, you may gather more than one of these different sources of information together. Yes, you may have an interview, but in addition to the interview, you may want to cite newspaper articles or to cite a book, or you may want to comment about a certain experience you have had. And there's space for that. The more sources you have, the better. Let's talk about finding the ideal interviewee. So let's say that your source of information to find out what you want to find will be the interview. So you need to choose someone who is able to talk about that subject. This person must have a relation to the topic you want to know about. I'm giving a cool example here. Let's say you will have an interview with Dr. Jeff Liebman, one of the jazz faculty at the Arizona State University. And let's say you will also have an interview with Dr. Fiorentino, one of the music education faculty at Arizona State University. Yes, you can do the two interviews, but you will probably want Dr. Liebman to talk about jazz music education. And you probably want Dr. Fiorentino to talk about K-12 music education or about music education research. You probably don't want to do the opposite. Because if you do that, this may not be the ideal people to talk about the information you are trying to find out. Maybe Dr. Liebman is not the right person to talk about K-12 music education research, for example, while Dr. Fiorentino is probably not the best person to talk about jazz music education. But the opposite would work very well. So this is just an example. You need to make sure you have the right person talking about the topic you chose. The right person giving you the information you need to find what you need to find. So when you are finding sources, you may also want to find additional sources. And as I said before, these sources may include books, documents, or the internet. No matter if you were having an interview and if you have a guest talking about something to you and providing you the information, or if you are finding on books or in the internet, or if a friend of yours is telling you a story, you want to check how reliable is the source you have. Yes, someone has a very cool story to share, but is this a trustable source of information? Also, make sure that when you look for sources that you know if what you are finding out is opinion or reporting. So if you find out, for example, a newspaper article, is the information you found news? Someone is reporting an information, or is this an opinion of someone? So it's very different because, yes, you can base yourself in opinions, but these are less reliable, except if this person is making their opinion really strong based in strong facts, or if it's a person with a very reliable reputation. And this is why interviews many times work well, because if you choose someone to interview and to talk about a certain topic, you probably chose this person because you know that this person is reliable to talk about that. So Michael Jordan will be an excellent person to talk about basketball or sports or the Olympic Games or about NBA. Dr. Stauffer will be an excellent person to talk about music education research. I'm not sure if Michael Jordan will be the most reliable person to tell you something about music education research. This is how it works. One more important thing, when you are trying to look for your topic, you are trying to think about your topic. Who is your audience? Yes, you were trying to find out information about something. And I don't know, when you have the findings, maybe just one person will see the findings in addition to you. Maybe just you will have the findings. Maybe hundreds of people will have the findings. Who is your audience? What is the size of your audience? But even more important, who is your audience? Because if only you is your audience, you may want to research about something that you want to know. If your professor is your audience, if you're going to provide your findings to your professor, you may be wanting to research about something that your professor may want to know, or that your professor may find fascinating. If you're going to talk to a group of undergraduate students, maybe you want to research about something that sounds exciting and interesting for all of these students. So let's talk about the difference between opinion and reporting. Once again, interviewing is a way of researching. Interviewing is one of the several ways how you can find out information. And when you find information, when you investigate information, the information that people may be given to you may be opinion, or they may be just reporting something. And when you want to put out all of your findings into a final product, when you want to show what you found out about your topic, you will have to decide if you want to do that, reporting the information or giving opinions. There is a huge difference between neutrality and opinion, between being objective and being subjective. Yes, we are always a bit subjective. We're always influenced by our own bias. But it is still different when you report and when you just give your opinions. So, for example, what is reporting? When you are reporting, you consider that the interviewee holds information. The interviewee is the source of your information, and you will only report the information you got with the interviewee. When you are giving your opinion, it's different. You may express yourself, you may give your opinion, you may talk about the facts, but of course you must base all of your opinion in reliable sources. So which of these two is the right one and which of these two is the wrong one? There is no right or wrong. Both are okay, but you need to make sure that whoever you were given the information you found knows when you are reporting and when you were giving opinion. So you may want to display all your findings in a setting that is all based in reporting only. You show the interview and you don't have any comments about that. You're just providing information. You have the right questions, and maybe you give us some additional findings from a book or from newspaper, some additional research. This is reporting. When it's all about giving opinions, I don't know, for example, you don't even have an interview. You were just talking about what you think about a certain subject. This is opinion. This is like opinion journalism. And of course, to make yourself reliable, you will still need to support your opinion with reliable sources. Of course, many times in the news or in other multimedia projects that provide information, you will have a hybrid between reporting and opinion. So you will have some room for reporting, for interviews, for sources, and just reporting the information you found. And you will have some room for commentary, for example. Opinion journalism or opinion researching needs VIA, verification, independence, and accountability. Let's watch together this video by Stephen Rayner, who is a Stonebrook University faculty from the School of Journalism. And you will understand more what I'm talking about opinion or opinion journalism or opinion researching or opinion reporting of the facts you have researched.
We should certainly be on the lookout for bias, a long-term pattern of unfairness in the news media. With that said, there is a place for opinions in journalism. This comes, though, with two important clarifications. Number one, yes, there are many opinions in news reports, but they are not journalists' opinions. They are the opinions of the people who journalists have interviewed. Number two, yes, there is such a thing as opinion journalism, but opinion journalism is not news reporting. It serves a different purpose. Let me explain. When you have a big news story, like a fatal ferry accident, you have many news reports on that event. Each news story could include interviews with victims, rescue workers, government officials, and others who might have expressed their opinions to the reporters. Their opinions in the news reports are there to inform us of their views and perspectives. Written opinions and broadcast commentaries are not news reports. In opinion journalism, writers and commentators share their own viewpoints and show you how you could interpret the information you get from news reports. Opinion is defined as a view, a judgment, or an appraisal formed in the mind about a particular matter. You find journalistic opinion expressed, for example, in book reviews, movie reviews, and restaurant reviews, editorials, and opinion columns in print publications, and commentary on television and radio. With opinion journalism, like all journalism, we expect commentators to adhere to those three fundamental elements: verification, independence, and accountability. Opinion journalists should support their views with facts. For example, a columnist who argues in favor of increasing immigration into her country would cite statistics to demonstrate that immigrants have a positive economic impact on the countries they immigrate to. Not everyone will agree with this opinion, but even opinion journalists have an obligation to report the facts. News organizations that employ opinion journalists must also be accountable by clearly labeling opinion so that consumers can distinguish it from news reporting. Labels like opinion, review, column, commentary identify pieces as opinionated.
So when the term journalism is used on the video, don't think like, well, I'm not a journalist, I don't need to think like this. Now, you are researching information and you have to report your information. So you have to think about that. You have to care about that. One thing I really like about this video is when he talks about the labels. As I said, there's no right or wrong about opinion and reporting information. But you need to make sure that you label the information that is your opinion. You need to make sure that whoever is reading, listening, or watching you, that this person may have the opportunity to understand when the facts that you were bringing, when these are facts that you are reporting, and when these are just your opinion about something. Let's move forward. Well, how to create your questions for your interviews. Here we have the 5WH, and you may want to take notes because this is very helpful. What, who, when, where, why, how. Every time you want to find out an information, all of these words will help you to create the right questions for finding out the information you need. So let's say that you will have a project where you want to research about world music repertoire in choral music education. So here are some examples of the questions. What are the songs that your choir has been singing? Who are the students who sing in your choir? If you want to work with world music repertoire, do you have international students or immigrants in your choir? When have you started working with world music repertoire in choir music education? Where is the place where your project runs? Where is the place that you are conducting your choir? Why you had the idea of using world music repertoire in choir music education? How do you do that? How do you teach world music repertoire in choir music education? And many questions may come from these first questions. And many times these questions are even better than the first questions you imagine. So, for example, when I asked, how do you work with world music repertoire in music education? You may ask things such as, do you have to teach a foreign language in order to work with world music repertoire inside of music education? Or, for example, do you take the opportunity to teach students about foreign culture when you were teaching foreign music, choir music education? One example I may mention about that is that in 2018, I have saw a choir at the University of South Florida singing a song called Baba Yeto. So Baba Yeto is sung in an African language. I think it's Swahili. But you know, the interesting fact about this song is that this song has been composed to a computer game called Civilization 4. And this is the soundtrack of the game. And I'm not sure if the choir knows that they are singing in Swahili, if they know that this song has actually been composed for a video game. And I don't know if they know if the composer is an African who currently lives in the United States. And this composer has been on a kind of reality show, like performing reality shows such as The Voice. So, you know, there's a lot of information inside the information, and this may lead your inquirer, this may lead you to richness of information, and this may lead you to even better questions than you thought in the beginning. So here we have a lot of information. Let's talk about creating a script for your interview. First of all, take a look in the graph. What I'm trying to show here is your interview or your inquirer may be the most well-prepared one or the most relaxed one, and there is no right or wrong here. So what is a well-prepared inquiry? You already decided in advance which are the questions you will be asking. What do you want to ask? You will have all the questions in advance. And you will avoid moving to new questions, new improvised questions, because you want to focus in what you had in your mind before you started the interview. So a little more relaxed than that is, you have pre-established questions, you have created your questions, but you have room for creating new questions. And many times this may mean that for, 20-minute interview, you will have like maybe 20 questions, but you will end up asking just 5 or 6 of those, and you will have room for creating new questions while you are interviewing. So even more relaxed than that is, you have decided the subjects, the topics you will want to cover in the interview, but you didn't create questions. And you were not doing that because you're lazy. You didn't create questions because you want everything, you want the interview environment to be as natural as it can be. So you will just ask questions as things start to happen. The questions will start to pop up in your mind. But just for the sake of having a sense of direction, you will have the subjects, you will have the topics you will want to cover with you. And you will make sure that you ask questions related to these topics. Even more relaxed than that is the informal conversation. You just decide or choose who is the best person to talk about that, and you invite that person for an informal conversation. And you don't have pre-established questions. And this may be the way how a TV show like Dave Letterman looks like, but this is not what is happening there. They have the questions, but many times they don't want to ask these questions. So what happens in Dave Letterman is kind of this one. Yes, I know Dave Letterman is not conducting interviews anymore, but it's just an example. And finally, the most relaxed of all the situations. You invite someone and you give a topic to this person, and you just get out of the way and let this person talk about anything that they want about this topic. And you don't even ask questions. But in this case, this is not an interview. You have invited a guest to talk about something. Okay, so choose your style of interview, and I would strongly encourage everyone to go on number 2 if you want something more well prepared, or number 3 if you want something more relaxed, especially if you were not very experienced about conducting interviews. If there will be any preparation, if you will prepare the interview, first choose the topics you want to cover, and then for each topic create a set of questions. You may want to have more questions than you will actually use. So you may be thinking, well, my interview will have 5 minutes only, so I will have 2 questions or 3, and that's okay. No, you may want to have 10 questions. And according to what is happening when you conduct your interview, you will choose which questions you will ask. By the way, if you have prepared the interview, when you are interviewing, use the flow of the interview to move from one topic to another one. So don't think like this, well, I still have 10 questions of this first topic, but, this topic is not working, and I have other topics to cover, but I still didn't finish asking my 10 questions. No, this is not the way it works. Yes, have a lot of questions for each topic you want to cover, but as you realize that this topic is not working well, move to another one. So when you have the interview with an audience, this works particularly well because the audience lets you feel if this topic is working well or not. So in a TV show like David Letterman, again, this is a good example. Probably they have several questions saved, but as the audience reacts better to one or another question, they decide which topic they will cover more or which topic they will cover the most. When conducting your interview, take notes. And when you are taking notes, your notes may inspire you to ask new and better questions. Well, wait, but I will record my interview, so I don't need to take notes. Yes, but the notes will still help you to find the information in the recording, and the notes will still help you to have ideas of even better questions. You will be reacting to the interview and providing something better than you planned before. So it may be very good to take notes, even if you have just keywords. Avoid excessively leading questions in order to avoid unnecessary subjectivity, except if you really need it. Well, what I'm trying to say here is that if you have a very, very, very leading question, if you have a very specific and close question that doesn't have room for a lot of answers, you may be influencing the findings, and this is not what you want. This is not what you want in research. This is not what you want in journalism. So I will give you one example. Let's say you were asking a white person, for how long have you been racist? You were not given any room for this person to tell you that, I'm not racist. You were already assuming that this person is racist. And you are influencing the inquiry with your own subjectivity because you already thought that this person is racist. So maybe the ideal question is, how do you feel about white people and black people? And then you let your guest speak about that. And if you're having opinions, you can say something after this person has answered your question. And if you are just reporting, what you got from the question is what you have. And maybe you want to lead a bit more the question later, but there's a limit you should preserve in order to not let your findings and the questions, the answers, affect the objectivity of the information you want to find out. Another good advice is you need to find a way to friendly interrupt your interviewee when needed and go back to your topic. So for example, I used to have a jazz analysis online course, and we have had like 7 interviews with several fantastic musicians. And in one of these interviews, we had exactly 55 minutes of interview, and we were expected to have a 1-hour interview, and it worked so well. But in one of the interviews, we had a 2 hours interview because I struggled to find a nice way to interrupt my interview and still have him providing me the answers I needed. So you may need a way to do that, especially if you are having a live interview, if you're broadcasting a live interview. If you're recording an interview, there is an excellent solution, and this is the last topic I have on this slide. Well, you may just edit the interview. Even if your interview takes 2 hours, you can still edit your interview, and you will just broadcast or provide the information that you found more interesting. Many times journalists pick an answer for a question and they just cut the excerpt they want from this answer. And yes, many times when they do that, they change the way how people will perceive the information they're given. So you must be careful, but this is a very efficient way of making a fantastic interview where you got 2 hours of information be synthesized in the amount of time you want your podcast or any other multimedia project be. Uh-oh, not the end yet. Let's come back. So how to shape your findings into a final product? You have to decide who is your audience. This is the first thing to do. Who are you talking to? Then you will decide the best way to have this audience. I will give you one example. If you are presenting your findings in a research conference, maybe they will give you 20 minutes to talk about all you have found. If you are presenting in a conference, but you are one of the main researchers talking about something, maybe they will give you up to 1 hour to talk about it. If you are conducting, if you will be talking to undergraduates and it's a multimedia project and all of the undergraduates have to present all of their projects in a 1 hour class live inside the size of the class, maybe your project will be 5 to 10 minutes. You know, and many times I have seen YouTube videos that cover a topic in 1 minute. And if you want to do a documentary about something, maybe it may have up to 2 hours or many 2 hours chapters. So depending on your audience, you will decide how long your podcast will be or any other multimedia project. Or, I don't know, even your paper, the size of your paper, how long will be your paper? It also depends on your audience. Anyway, why are you having this research? Why are you interviewing people? You were doing this because you want to show that to someone. And after you know who is this someone, you will know how to shape your findings. A very important thing to discuss is, if you're having an interview, will you broadcast or, I don't know, will you come with the entire interview or will you edit the interview and insert only the most valuable excerpts of the interview? This is very important because, you know, if I had that 2 hours interview, which was wonderful, fantastic, and full of rich information, and I had to bring this interview to a smaller project, I could pick this interview and cut only the most important excerpts I wanted to use. One of my students actually has done that. She took a 1 hour interview I had, and she took the recorded interview and she used it in her 20 minutes project. So she wanted a specific 3 minutes excerpt where the interviewer was talking about something very specific. And she worked with that. And this is kind of what you may want to do. You know, you may choose to have an entire interview and maybe it will be a shorter interview, or you may have an interview and cut excerpts, or you may have several interviews and only provide the excerpts. What to do when the interviewee has provided a lot of valuable information and you need to synthesize because the interview took a long time to talk about all this valuable information. You may possibly indirectly cite the interviewee. So you can and you should have recordings of certain excerpts of the information, like an answer for a specific question. You will provide this recording. This is the way how you will prove that you talked to this person. You will hear their voice. If you're interviewing Michael Jordan and you only provide us indirect quotes, indirect citations of what Michael Jordan said, no one will believe you interviewed Michael Jordan. So you may want to have at least 1, 2, or maybe 3 moments where we can hear the voice of Michael Jordan, and maybe we're not giving us the entire answer to a question, but just the most special excerpt of this answer. But in addition to that, if there are other important information, you may want to indirectly cite what Michael Jordan said. In addition to the recordings of the voice of Michael Jordan. This is just an example. How to make your findings look more dynamic? Yes, you can have an interview and that's all. So if we're having a podcast project or a multimedia project, for example, you introduce yourself, you introduce your team, and then you start the interview, you win the interview, and that's all. That's all, folks. Good for today. But you may also edit the interview, and you may break the interview into parts. And when you break the interview into parts, you may choose spots between one part and another to insert your indirect citations of what the interview said. So, for example, you were interviewing Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan said, well, you know what, I love pizza and I just love to go to Papa John's. And you have the recorded voice of Michael Jordan saying that. And after you have showed this recording of his voice, you can just add. Michael Jordan has also said that pepperoni is his favorite flavor, and that he most often eats pizza on Sundays and Saturdays because he doesn't want to eat pizza every day because he doesn't find it healthy. So, you know, Michael Jordan said that, but you were not given the direct citation of what he said. So you were mixing recorded information with synthesized information provided by you with your voice. And you know, when you break the interviews, this is also an opportunity for having commentaries. If you are going to work with opinions, you may have this opportunity to give your opinions. You may have the opportunity to break the interview into parts and take these parts as an opportunity to give an opinion or to synthesize findings or to comment about something or to add information from another source. So you may even, for example, have several different people being interviewed, and instead of having one interview, then later another, then later another, you may cut these interviews into pieces and mix the information according to the topic. So let's talk about pizza. Here is Michael Jordan, and he talks about it. Now we have Dr. Fiorentino talking about pizza. Now we have the pizza guy talking about pizza. And now we will talk about sports. So here's Michael Jordan talking about sports. So here's Dr. Fiorentino talking about sports. It's not the best example because these people are not specialists talking about that. And you want specialists talking about the topics you choose. But it's a good example about how to break the information into several parts, how to edit the information and make it more interesting than just having a person talking about a certain thing for 1 hour. If you have a set of materials, you may want to decide for how long you want to use each of these materials. Yes, the interview is one of the materials. If you want to not only have the interview, but you want to mix the interview with other interviews or other sources, such as John Smith from your group talking about something he found in a book, or someone in your group talking about experience that they have had, or about one opinion that is based in things that they have read about. Yes, you can have all of this, but you need to decide how long will be your project, your paper, your multimedia project, your podcast. And when you do that, make sure that you are balancing all the information in the way you found better for your project. So one more thing, every time you have comments, no matter if you are breaking the interview and having comments, or if you have finished the interview and then you will go to comments, or if all your project is based only in opinion, you will have no interviews at all, just opinion, but your opinions will be based in sources. You need to label that. You need to make sure that before you start giving your opinion, that this is the space for opinion, this is the room for opinion, this is the time for opinions. This is not reporting anymore. Let's move forward. So here I have a template for a structure of a project taking 10 minutes. You have an introduction, you say what you're doing here, what is happening. You introduce who are the people working in this project. Then later, you will provide a general view of what is happening later, what you will feature in your show, in your project, in your, I don't know, in your product. Then later you may come with the interview. So I saved here about only 5 minutes for the interview. I'm considering that I had like a 20 minutes interview and I edited that, or maybe a 1 hour interview and I edited that. And I may have indirect citations connecting one to other excerpts of my recording. I may mix excerpts of the interview with that. By the way, when people do that, many times they don't provide the sound or the video of the question. They just come with the answer. So it's like this. We have asked Michael Jordan about what's his relation with pizza, and then we will come with the Michael Jordan audio talking about pizza. And then later you may have an indirect citation of Michael Jordan saying that he eats pizza only on the weekends. And then later you come back to another excerpt of Michael Jordan's voice. But in order to make it shorter, you just don't need to have the questions. You will indirectly mention the questions or the subjects. So in this project, I suggested having room for commentary, for opinion. So you could have one of your teammates being the person who is the voice of the podcast. You may have another one who is pursuing the interview. You may have another one who is having additional research with different sources and will do the commentary. This is just an example. So here I have a different template with 16 minutes. So it's just the same thing, but here I have saved room for a second interview. And we have the commentaries for both interviews. I don't want to have commentaries. I don't want to have opinions. We just want to report information. Sure, follow this structure and remove the opinion moments from here. This will work. Well, I like this structure, but I want to have way more interviews, and I want to make it way longer, such like a small documentary. That's okay. You may use this structure as an example, and you may have several interviews. You may break the interviews, or you may put all the interviews together, and you may move from one answer to another according to the topics. So this is a longer one, and I like this one. So on this one, we have the whole interview that may be not edited, like a 30 minutes interview with question and answer. And here you have room enough for having the sound of the question and the answer. And in the end, I saved a lot of space for opinions. So the team, the group mates, the students or the researchers may talk about their findings and the interview in the end. So this one is another example, and this one is only opinion-based. I'm not sure if you guys should have this one for this project. You may want to have interviews, but this is an example for a multimedia opinion-based project. So we have the commentary, and instead of an interview, we have an informal conversation. So yes, you have a guest, you have someone. If the topic is music education, you have a music educator talking to you. And there's a spelling mistake here, but anyway, you will have the informal conversation with someone, and you will broadcast the whole thing. But before that, you will have your team talking about something, and after that you will also have your team talking about something. So everything is not very much about reporting informations or reporting findings, but it's all about giving opinions or showing your findings based on things you found and just talking about it the way you want. Let's move to the last one. So once again, I want to reinforce the differences between opinion and reporting. And I'm using the term final product because, it may be anything. Be serious and reliable about the topic, either for something based in opinions or reporting. Don't think that only because you are working with opinions and not reporting that you don't need to be reliable. You need to provide reliable information, and you need to prove that your information is reliable. You remember the example about the voice of Michael Jordan. We interviewed Michael Jordan, then we don't hear the voice of Michael Jordan. You're not reliable. One time I have recorded a video project about a kind of ecologic track, and a snake has appeared in front of us, but we were not able to record the snake. We reported that we saw the snake, but we didn't have the image. This is not quite reliable. So even if you were going to not only report or not report at all, you were just going to give your opinions about something, be reliable, connect your opinions to sources. And if you are reporting, of course, always cite the source where this information came from. This is also good for research. If you choose to only report, be very neutral. And if you are mixing reporting with opinion, there's room for reporting and room for opinions. Still be very neutral when reporting. And when it's time for your opinions, label the opinions and cite sources that support your opinion. Come with, scientific research that embeds what you were talking about, or come with a newspaper article, or with an excerpt of a book, or with the recording of someone talking about something like an interviewee, or a YouTube video that it was not you that recorded, but you want us to see that, I don't know, you were not able to interview Michael Jordan about pizzas, but you found a video of Michael Jordan talking about pizza. You know, there's several different ways of making what you were saying reliable and providing sources that support your opinion. That's all. I hope you liked it. And one more time, this may look very, very journalistic. It may look like very much something made for journalists. But when you start asking your questions, if you don't take always it under consideration, when you start shaping your findings, you will realize that all that we have discussed here is really helpful. So I strongly encourage you to take the reliable way of following these advices, especially if this will be your first time interviewing someone or having a project where you give your opinions about something, or if this is your first time dealing with several different sources of information to create a final product that, in this case, is a multimedia project. My name is Adolfo Mendonça. Thank you so much.